Women of Reddit, what's your cringy nice guy story? He wanted to impress upon me what a good guy he was, and he was also too scared to ask me out like a normal person. He killed two birds with one stone by having his split personality tell me it really wanted to kill me, but nice guy was bravely holding it back because he liked me so much. Obviously I fell head over heels immediately. I was friends with a coworker. We had hung out a few times socially after work and got along well, but it never really occurred to me to wonder if he was interested in me. At that point in my life I did not get a lot of male attention, and honestly was pretty cringy myself, but that's for a different thread. Anyway, we were walking side by side and I guess he went to put his arm around me. It surprised me, like that someone is tapping you on the opposite shoulder trick, and I turned abruptly. He took it as incredibly rude, gave me an angry lecture about leading people on and how disgusting you make someone feel when you literally flinch from their touch, and called me a B. Sorry for my reflexes. About a week later another friend came to me at work to let me know that guy was telling everyone I was a W who was sleeping my way through the department. Nice. The dumbest part was that I probably would have gone on a date with him if he'd asked. I just had no idea he was thinking along those lines. Bullet dodged. In high school, a guy I barely knew tried to convince me to tell my parents that I was going to a friend's house but really go hang out with him. I was normally rebellious but got the feeling that my parents would be right in telling me I couldn't spend time with him. I politely rejected his offer and blamed my parents so it wouldn't be awkward, and he retaliated by covering my dad's car in dyed tampons. Patrick, you're a freaking creep. What a waste of tampons. I've seen two guys get into a fist fight at an office Christmas party over who was going to help an intoxicated 27-year-old married woman get home. I managed one of these guys and subsequently found out he had sent her 80 emails in one day with all that "why won't you talk to me, we're friends" etc stuff. He was fired but couldn't see how he had done anything wrong. This actually just happened recently. My good friend from college and I, along with other friends from our program, went out to a bar to celebrate finishing our degree. He kept feeding me shots but I figured everyone just wanted to be drunk and have a good time. The night is coming to an end and I'm quite incapacitated. My good friend frantically approaches me saying that he had just seen a guy put something in my drink, which I had just finished. He told me that I would soon be unconscious and it was best that he take me back to his apartment so he could take care of me. Being heavily drunk and also quite scared, I agreed and he helped me back to his apartment. After making me something to eat and giving me some water, we set up camp for the night on his couch. He put on a movie and he said he would sit and watch me sleep to make sure I didn't throw up or anything. As I started to doze off, he started touching me, first on my feet and knees and then my upper thigh. I confronted him about it and he said after everything he had done he felt he deserved compensation. I laughed it off, but after he tried to make a move again I got angry and we began fighting. He exposed to me that no one had put anything in my drink and it was all a ploy to allow him to make his move. After some more arguing he decided it was best I left, and he kicked me out of his apartment at 3 AM while I was still considerably drunk. This is someone whom I've trusted and spent 4 years being friends with. Safe to say I'll be a lot more speculative with future male friends. That's so freaking rappy and manipulative. Right after high school, a guy came out of the woodworks and told me that he had a crush on me. I thought it was nice, but I just did not like him. He was always buying me presents and dropping them off at my mom's house. I always said thanks, but told him I just wasn't interested. We had the same group of friends so I would see him from time to time. When I would see him he would pull me aside and politely ask me to go on a date with him. I told him that I just didn't see him that way. One day, I ran into him at the store and he asked me out again and I went on this long rant about how I was going off to college and I didn't want to be tied down. He ended up asking me out again. I ended up walking away. He came up behind me and pushed me. He has this evil look in his eye, and I ran to my car and called my mom. He ended up messaging me a couple days later and telling me that he's just mad because God told him I was the one he was going to marry. I blocked him on all social media and my phone. He still managed to get my new address when I moved off to college, and one time he drove almost an hour to my apartment. He knocked on my door and he handed me a bag of my favorite candy. I flipped out like I should have done many times before and I threatened to call the cops and get a restraining order. I've seen him once in the last 7 years with his wife and new baby. I hope he has changed. So not a stereotypical nice guy really, but I met him at a party, gave him a ride home, and after belting out "Don't Stop Believing" together, he asked for my number. We went on one date and texted for a week. Then Saturday morning, I woke up to 50 plus texts that started with asking what I was doing, sleeping because I worked in the morning, and went all the way up to I should just kill myself since no one wants to talk to me. I told him that was unacceptable as I had already told him I worked Saturday morning, but even if I hadn't, there's no reason to text me over 50 times. If I'm not answering, I'm not answering. He whined about being so nice and how good he was to me and blah 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 blah. Thankfully, when my friends asked why I was ignoring such a nice guy, showing them the texts was enough for them to drop it. I met him at a party, gave him a ride home, and after belting out "Don't Stop Believing" together, he asked for my number. I always find it way more mortifying when the story starts off with totally normal and cute behavior. I'd forgotten about this until I read this thread. Like a lot of these stories, I've had more than my fair share of nice guys. TM. But this guy was definitely the worst. This guy messaged me on OkCupid. He was 62. Not necessarily a deal breaker, except I was 20 and he was a dozen years older than my parents. I said thanks but no thanks. I was uncomfortable with that much of an age difference. Good luck out there. He flipped. Non-stop messages vacillating between how I would regret this, wheedling, compliments and apologies, and call me a W, a S, a blue baller, etc. Literally dozens upon dozens of messages a day. He was a lawyer. He had ways of making me regret this. I would never do as good as him. No other man would treat me so well, and I'm a W if I say no. On and on. This was many years ago. At the time, you could report someone for harassment on OkCupid, but it didn't stop that person from messaging you. Finally, I told him I would meet him in the city, at a popular college bookstore, at 2 p.m. Wouldn't you know it, I somehow forgot to go. After another day or two of berating for standing him up, he got the hint and disappeared. A 62-year-old lawyer really should think about their public image, should say. A screenshot of harassing communications get out in the public, or to the partners at his firm or something along those lines. I was 21 at a bar doing research for a paper, and this really old, beer gut kind of business looking dude starts talking to me, telling me I'm cute, asking to buy me a drink. I say no thanks, not interested, and he says I'm not pretty enough to reject him. Well, apparently I am. I met a guy one night after a night out, exchanged numbers. He was handsome, seemed normal. We met for dinner, and I was surprised when he brought flowers and a bottle of wine, as it was our first date and we knew nothing about each other yet. Throughout dinner, I noticed that he would ask questions, but not listen to my answers. He seemed in his own world, as if he was preparing his next question. Very robotic. He mentioned that his sister was out of town and he was house sitting for her in the building a few blocks away. Okay, even though he weirded me out a bit, I was young and still felt like things were going fairly well. Anyways, when we left, he was walking me to my car. I was wearing heels, and as such, felt comfortable holding onto the crook of his arm for support as we walked. As we walked, he tried to persuade me to come into the apt building that he was supposedly house sitting. We'll go up to the rooftop, he said. Best view in Hollywood, which was the clincher for me. BC, it was so corny, and also so creepy. I kept saying no, I have to get up early, etc. When we got next to the building, he tightens his grip on me and said, "What's your problem?" His facade dropped and he looked scary and angry. "I bought you flowers. I brought wine. I paid for dinner," as if he was checking off ABC is supposed to equal D. Then, we were having fun where and we and was pulling me towards the door and twisting my arm. I pulled away from him and literally ran to my car and pulled off. I have no doubt he would have raped worse me if I hadn't. I know this is beyond nice guys, but the way he felt that he had systematically performed his steps and earned more from me, the horror stays with me. TL. DR. First date with a normal seeming, handsome guy who seemed to think if he robotically went through the steps of a successful first date, that I owed him to be forced into an apt building and got scary angry when I refused. I had to run. That's actually why I don't wear heels on the first few dates. Sometimes you gotta run. I used to work at GameStop and the building was connected to a Starbucks. He recognized me from high school, but was a year under me, so I had no idea who he was. I generally kept to myself. He'd talk to me as I waited for my order and he seemed pretty cool. A couple weeks later he tells me I'm pretty and if we could hang out. I'm engaged, so I told him outright. He promised me that he just wanted to be friends, and I'm, apparently, a very gullible person. He'd get me free Starbucks, tell me I'm a great artist, yada yada. About 2 weeks later he asks me to meet him at a bar because he is upset about something. Trying to be a good friend, I go to comfort him. So, I go to the bar, and he's already drunk. I didn't drink because if things turn sour, I could just leave. He gets all feely on my thigh. I tell him I'm uncomfortable, so he stops, apologizes that he's drunk. I kick his butt at pool and he asks me to go smoke with him. I don't smoke cigarettes, but sure I'll go talk. He pushed me against the wall, kissed me, and put his hand in my pants. I fought him back, but a dude leaving the bar got him off of me. No nice guy will ever be trusted again. TLDR. He used my gullible nature against me and tried to rape me. There was a customer who came into the coffee shop where I worked. I asked him what he wanted to drink and he moaned, "Something that will fix a broken heart." I forced a smile while he told me that he had been stood up. Again, I smiled through all of it, and when he still hadn't told me what he was going to order, I suggested what I like to drink. He asked what it would cost, and I said, "No charge. Tomorrow's another day." I made his order and went back to finish washing dishes. He came back in and brought me a Cosmo magazine, saying he was a magazine vendor and he thought I might like it and thanks for being nice. I said no problem, wished him a good night and forgot about him. A few days later, my co-worker races to the back to tell me this guy was back and blocking our drive-thru. Now, when he came in last time, I had my wedding ring on a necklace because I didn't like to wear it when I was washing dishes. I asked her what he wanted and she said he was demanding to talk to me. I said, "Tell him I'm not here." She says, "He saw your car." Okay, that is creepy. He knew what I was driving. I reluctantly come out after popping my wedding ring on my finger. The guy has a large bundle of carnations and a box of chocolate and is in one of those big old 1970s vans with the little circle window on the back row. I made sure my ring was very visible and made sure to fiddle with it. I came up to the window and asked how I could help, and he saw my ring. His face reddened and his tone became very threatening. "Where did you get that ring?" "This ring? My husband gave it to me on our wedding day 7 years ago. He is P." He begins to bellow at me. "You weren't wearing that last time." "I was. You just didn't see." "Quiet you be." I tease freaking ass like you that keep nice guys like me from getting a date. He threw the carnations at the window as we pulled it shut in a panic. He beat on his steering wheel and honked the horn and yelled profanities. We were about to call the police and were locking the cafe doors when he squealed out of the drive-thru, almost knocking the patio furniture over. Yep, he was a super nice guy. Oh geez. I went to school with a nice guy, neckbeard, anime katana sword wielding, ambidextrous kinda guy. He would talk about how girls only like the big jock guys and how they neglect the smart intellectuals like him. He also talked about how he was waiting for a girl to be smart enough and good enough for him, which doesn't make any sense at all, but okay. He weighed about 90 pounds, had vampire pale skin and bleach blonde hair which he wore at an awkward too long in the front length so it could cover his eyes. He started hanging around where I would eat lunch my freshman year of high school. No one wanted him around, but we were nice and we would just smile. Anyway, neckbeard would get way too close to me, making up reasons to touch me. I am really short so he would set his arm on my head, grab my shoulders just awkward and wanted touching. So I told him to hey maybe don't touch me. He did not get the message. In fact the not so sly hair smelling weird touching increased and I said zip cause I was shy. Well, he got my number from one of my friends and started sending me those creepy asterisk messages. Example, "Hey good looking." Walks over to you and puts arm around you. "I missed you." Runs hand over your soft hair, hugs you, feeling your nice boobs press against my strong manly chest. I didn't respond and they just got worse and worse. He sent me a shirtless photo that nearly blinded me. I texted him telling him what he was doing was making me uncomfortable, but that didn't stop him. He started texting me about how he was gonna rape me and how I was gonna call him daddy and like it. I learned how to block someone on Verizon that day. I never told anyone about it. I had to go to 4 years of high school with this kid getting too close, making me so uncomfortable. TLDR. Nice guy neck but won't stop sexually harassing me at school. Sends me texts about how he's gonna rape me. I block him. He still tries to hang around me at school. High school sucked. He sent me a shirtless photo that nearly blinded me. This is a really scary experience and I'm so sorry you were threatened like that. But this line made me laugh so hard. Some guy messaged me online and seemed nice enough. Asked if I'd like to meet up with him. I said sure. He tells me a Starbucks between our places and said he'd see me in 30 minutes. I was like, whoa, not right now. It's 10 PM. He said okay, but he'd like to keep talking to me if it was alright. A few days later this exchange happens over Messenger. Him. Hey, what's up? Me. NM. How are you? Him. I'm good. Me. Good. 5 minutes pass, so I assume he was busy for a sec. Him. Well, if you don't have anything to say, you freaking be. Don't let me on and let me think that we can be together. You're nothing but a freaking W anyways. Only W led nice guys like me on. Frick you, you freaking W. Yep, nice guy. Met up with a guy from collegiaclub.com and we had planned for a quick bite to eat. I had forgotten my wallet, so he came to my dorm room with me to quickly grab it. We get there and he immediately starts looking around at all my off photos etc. around the room. He finds my Homer Simpson slippers and a rooster beanie boo my nephew had left there. He takes the rooster and stuffs it in Homer's mouth and makes it move, as if the slipper was chewing, and says, look at me, I am vain. I create suffering for animals so I can feast. Selfish hungry bee. I was speechless, but then he opens my drawer and starts throwing makeup around saying this is tested on animals. I am vain. Animals suffer for my beauty, and then opened my wardrobe and started throwing clothes around saying these things have been made in sweatshops. My friend called security on him. Tell us more about Vain Lord. I work retail and have for more than 25 years. I once, about 9 years ago, when I worked in a liquor store, had an older customer that would come in and, I thought, play flirt with me. A lot of customers play flirted with me, so I didn't think anything of it. Plus, this guy was, like, twice my age, and I was no spring chicken. I had no idea that he seriously thought we were really flirting. Until one day, he asked me out, not in a regular way, mind you. Oh, no, he said, so, we've known each other for a while. Now, I'll just wait until you're off tonight, and then we can go out. I'll take you to expensive restaurant. I politely declined. He went ballistic. Long story short, the manager banned him from the store for life. Thank God. I lost a bunch of weight and my ex from high school contacted me out of the blue. He pretended he wanted to catch up and claimed that he was in a committed relationship, so I'll let him visit me. I was very naive. Long story short, we had non-consensual sex and he outright said that the reason he contacted me was that I owed him my body because he suffered so much embarrassment having to date me while I was fat. What the frick? He was a nice guy but had his friends stalk me in an online MMO after I was late texting him back. He was also super passive aggressive, like I see you online, but you aren't responding to my messages. The straw that broke the camel's back was when he showed up at my college campus, which was an hour from where he lived, and wanted to randomly hang out. But he wasn't a creepy stalker. He was just a nice guy I didn't understand. Help. The girl I like won't respond to my emails. Greek letter Omega. I went on a first date with a guy. Casual date for coffee. It wasn't terrible, but it was obvious that we didn't really click that well. He did the typical nice guy stuff during the date where he talked about how he was different from other guys, knew how to treat a woman, some talking down on gym bros, etc. I ended the date pretty quickly as I wasn't really feeling it and had just gotten off of a midnight shift, so it was past my bedtime. He insisted on walking me to my car and opening the door for me. Fine, whatever. Then he hugged me, and when we went to break apart, he tried kissing me. I turned my face and he immediately got agitated. blocked me from entering my car and said what? No kiss. I'm a pretty easygoing and tolerant person, but that was the first time something like that had ever happened, and I immediately felt a slight bit of fear, as the guy was blocking my car and was about 6'4", so much larger than me. I immediately put on my super serious face and said no, sorry, I really need to be getting home now, and luckily he moved. Took a bit of a break from dating after that. Recently read The Gift of Fear, and it's changed the way I perceive this kind of behavior. It's a little dated, but I highly recommend the read. My best friends, we'll call him Dan. Mom threw a joke moving away party for him because he was going to be traveling abroad for 3 months. We had a big dinner at a restaurant that Dan chose. Dan also got to invite 5 or 6 of his friends. After the dinner, we went back to his place and had a very relaxed house party. It was really just me and Dan having a blast dancing to music and laughing. Everyone else just kind of sat around. But one of the other guys, let's call him Jack, came up and started talking to me. Just generic get to know you type of questions. I figured he was just trying to make things less bland since Dan was the only one who knew all of us. At the end of the day, he added me on Facebook, which is pretty typical for college. In no way did either of us indicate we're interested in each other. And 2 weeks later, Jack posted that he was moving out of state for a job. A few weeks after that, I get a message from Jack where he tells me he's really interested in me and would like to date. My dude, you're a 3-hour flight away. Aside from all the reasons where I'm not really even interested in him, he accepts and tells me that he understands. Just kidding. He acted like he understood, but a week after the Facebook message he called me at 2 PM on a weekday plastered out of his mind telling me he loved me and that he could have seen himself being with me. I asked him what he was doing drunk on a weekday and he replied, drowning out the sorrows of your love. He asked me why I didn't feel the same way and let me tell you, I am just not into you was the wrong answer. He just kept saying over and over that he was so nice to me. He hadn't done anything wrong. He couldn't seem to understand that it doesn't mean I'll automatically fall for him. We had known each other for months and had only met once. It was the strangest thing I've ever experienced. To be fair though, he was really nice. Almost feel bad for the guy. Bet he looked back on those 2 moments like, oh no, why? Met a guy at college who seemed like a wayward out of towner that wasn't having any luck in the friend department. Word was he moved up from Cali, so we started working as semi-study buddies. He was taking courses for a different major, but they were courses I had done already. He knew I had a boyfriend but decided one day to ask me to dinner. I specified as friends and his response was something like sure, or it could be a date. The fact that I was in a long-term relationship didn't seem to make a difference to him, so I declined. After that my courses got switched to online courses, so I stopped seeing him as much, until he added me on Facebook and started trying to ask me out again. I finally told him no, that if he couldn't respect my current relationship enough to lay off the date attempts, that we didn't need to be friends. Then he went uber religious on me, started preaching at me constantly that he was terrified about my destiny of going to heck and wanted to save my soul so that didn't happen. Basically just admonishing every single decision I ever made as a person and determined like no other to convince me that my sinful ways would undermine me in every way. Kept saying he didn't want to see his friend go through that. I told him forcing his religion down my throat was the surefire way of pushing me away permanently, and proceeded to block him. I gave him a lot of chances to understand that what he was doing wasn't cool, but he was so convinced that he was just being a nice guy. I've chatted with guys, usually acquaintances at a party bar get together, who get angry and offended if they find out I'm not single or not looking to go home with them. Even if it's basic small talk or we're chatting as a part of group and there's zero flirting involved, you're treated like you're intentionally leading them on or wasting their time when all you did was talk about work or the weather. Hey, you asked if I was interested and I immediately set the story straight. Well, there have been many, but one in particular takes the cake. When I was a freshman in college, I met a guy through mutual friends that seemed to be really cool. I was really intrigued by his intellect and what I perceived to be kindness. Zero red flags from this guy. He seemed immensely compassionate due to the suffering he'd had to endure growing up. He had cancer and had to get a testicle removed, and has also discovered his father hanging one day after his mom up and left. among other things. Anyways, I invited him over to my dorm on our first date, and before long we went from discussing literature to taking the danger highway to the BONEZONE. After sex, he says, the first time I talked to you, which was over the internet mind you. Dear readers, I decided I would tell you I loved you after the fourth date. I kind of chuckle to myself and brush it off, because this isn't the first time this kind of thing has been said to a girl after sex. Alright, anyways, he then asks me if he's the best sex of my life and if I'm ready to be exclusive. I say something to the effect of, I think you're awesome, but I don't want to rush into things. Let's have a few more dates and see how this goes. He immediately gets up, puts his clothes on, tells me you're just like every other W who doesn't want a man with one freaking testicle, and leaves. Never heard from him again. BONEZONE. My internal voice said this all a Chihuahuan cinematic. We met through a mutual friend at a party. I was really into him, and he seemed into me. We talked for hours sitting in her living room, exchanged numbers, and then talked for hours again the next day. We covered so many topics I couldn't possibly remember them all, but one thing we discussed was relationships versus hooking up. He said that he was only interested in an actual relationship, and he preferred to take things slow. I was fine with that. I was supposed to be leaving to go with said mutual friend and some others to a convention that weekend, so he asked if I wanted to go out to dinner together the night before. Of course I said absolutely. I was really looking forward to it. Some plans changed on his end, and dinner out turned into breakfast out the morning I was supposed to leave. Since he lived a few blocks from my friend's house, it made perfect sense to me, so I said yes again. When he picked me up from her place, he told me breakfast out would have to be breakfast in, at his apartment, but it was okay, because his roommate wasn't home. That's when things got weird. Okay, breakfast in someone's apartment isn't the worst thing in the world, but a breakfast only I was expected to eat was extremely strange. He just sat and watched me as I tried to finish this bagel and scrambled eggs as fast as possible so I could stop feeling like a zoo animal. When that was over, we started chatting, and for a while everything was normal again. Then he kissed me, and I was okay with that. But he started trying to go a little further and I put a stop to it. I said, look, we'd both discussed this and made it clear we each weren't interested in a hookup. I pointed out that he had been the one to bring up taking things slow and not jump into bed right away. While still trying to kiss me, he said, I know, but I'd make an exception for you. Cool, I wouldn't. I called an end to the date and walked back to my friend's place. All that effort for what? To try and manipulate me into bed? He could have said all he was interested in was sex and I probably would have still slept with him. But instead he felt like getting sex required some sort of clever plot to convince me I was special, and wound up with nothing. I'm seriously just going to hand out stickers that say actually talk to your partner honestly one of these days. Really, the floaty green crystal should have been the first red flag. But seriously, ugh, what a douche. Kept trying to hug me, like, every time he would see me, I'd never hug him back, yet he kept trying. I was a work study then, and he'd go to where I work just to see me. I'd be walking down the hallway with a professor and they'd watch this guy 5x the size of me open his arms to hug me as I walked by him. IDK if it counts as nice guy bit, it was really cringy. I'm a girl, but this story is about my husband and how he caught the bad end of a nice guy. A few years before I met my husband, he decided to go to a party. He gets there and some random girl walks up to him, says you're cute and kisses him. This amused him, so he started chatting with her. While chatting, he notices a very angry, short man standing next to her. The man is scowling at my husband and it's making him uncomfortable. He can tell the guy is pee at the attention girl is giving him, and it's just not worth it, so he stops talking to random girl, turns away, and starts walking to another room. It's at this point husband feels short man punch him in the back. When he turns around, short man is running away and actually runs out of the house and never returns to the party. Husband laughs it off, cause it wasn't even a hard punch. But then somebody notices husband is bleeding, and there is a hole in his shirt. The short sucker hadn't punched him, he stabbed him. Random girl saw this all go down and was pretty mortified. Turns out the short dude was obsessed with her. They were best friends, and he accompanied her everywhere. The knife was pretty small, so it didn't do any real damage. but he still has the scar. That is not where I thought this story would go. Frick, glad he's okay. I was on a dating website but hadn't logged in a little bit. When I did, I found 2 messages from the same guy. The first one was telling me that he thought my profile was great. He had a dog and loved hiking. Okay, cool. I enjoy those things. The second one came 2 days later saying how I guess you don't want something real. B. His first message was actually decent, so if it wasn't for his crazy nice guy follow up I might have given him a chance. Dodge that bullet. I had a date with a guy I met through OkCupid. When he found out that I was, at the time, writing erotica for a living, he put his hand very gently on mine and asked, with all the sincerity in the world, "Who hurt you?" "No one hurt me, guy. I got paid money to write stories about people dicking each other, and I had a whale of a time." He absolutely would not believe that I enjoyed my job, and that I wasn't lashing out as a result of some obvious sexual trauma I'd had in my past that he could somehow save me from. God only knows how actual sex workers cope on dates, if that's a common approach to people who aren't terrified to openly discuss penises. There was no second date. I was friends with this dude for over 2 years. Nice dude, but we had different views on things and I just wasn't interested in him in that way. He tried to ask me out before, but I tried my best to tell him I only liked him as a friend. Fast forward, I get a boyfriend and the dude hated him. He tried to tell me lies about him and say he was flirting with girls behind my back and just making up terrible lies about my boyfriend. After I called him out on it, he was embarrassed but tried to put the blame on me and shame me for dating someone else when he asked me out first. I still talk to him sometimes, but he still posts things on his Facebook about how girls let nice guys on and date other people. Girl, you should be riding my dong cause I called dibs. That dude, probably. If you are new to the channel, you can subscribe. I publish new videos every day. Until then, check another video. Bye for now.